Nobody knew the exact day her food changed. They only knew that once you tasted Madame Rice's jollof, you would come back, and come back, and come back again. Men abandoned their wives' cooking. Students skipped lectures. Drivers packed their buses carelessly just to rush for just one plate. They said her stew entered your soul. But what they didn't know was what entered the stew first. Welcome to Mama's African Folktales. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Sit well, because this is not just about rice. This is about desperation, greed, and the price of shortcuts. Before she became Madame Rice, her name was simply Mama Iberi. She was a widow in a crowded street in Port Harcourt. Her husband, Chibuzo, had died after a brief illness, leaving her with 2 children and rent arrears that kept multiplying like ants around sugar. She was not wicked. She was not evil. She was just tired. Every morning by 4:30 a.m., she would wake up in her 1-room apartment in Mile 3. She would sweep the compound, boil water on a small kerosene stove, and start preparing rice and beans for her roadside kiosk. Her kiosk was nothing more than 4 wooden planks nailed together, a zinc roof that leaked during heavy rain, 2 long benches, and a faded umbrella for shade. Her customers were mostly keke drivers, mechanics, students, and street hawkers. But business was not moving. Sometimes she would cook a full pot of rice and sell only half. The rest would spoil. The money she made barely covered ingredients, not to talk of profit. Meanwhile, just across the junction, another woman, Iyabose, was thriving. Her food finished by 2 p.m. daily. Iberi would watch people line up there and feel something dark grow inside her chest. "Is it that my food is not sweet?" she would mutter. But sweetness was not the problem. Luck was. One evening, as she sat outside fanning herself, her neighbor Ngozi leaned closer and whispered, "Iberi, there is a place you can go." Iberi looked up. "What place?" Ngozi lowered her voice. "A spiritual place." Iberi frowned. "Church?" Ngozi shook her head slowly. "Not that kind." She mentioned a man living at the outskirts of town, a powerful traditionalist. People said he could turn things around. Iberi hesitated. She had grown up Catholic. Her late husband had hated anything fetish. But hunger makes people bend their values. 3 days later, after another loss-making market day, she wrapped her headscarf tightly and followed Ngozi to the shrine. The shrine was hidden behind thick bushes. Red cloths hung from trees. White chalk symbols covered the mud walls. The man who emerged looked older than time. His eyes were sharp, his voice low. He did not ask her name. "I know why you are here," he said. She felt cold. "My business is not moving," she confessed. "I cook, but customers pass me." He laughed softly. "Everybody wants money, but not everybody is ready to sacrifice." Her heart pounded. "What sacrifice?" He studied her carefully before speaking. "You sell rice." "Yes." "Do you want people to eat your food and never be satisfied anywhere else?" She swallowed. "Yes." He leaned closer. "Then you must cook with something that belongs to you. Something personal, something that binds." She did not understand. He continued. "Each morning, before cooking, wash your private underwear. Use the water from that washing to cook the rice. Do not tell anyone. Do not miss a day. Do it for 6 market cycles." Her ears rang. "That's dirty." He shrugged. "So is poverty." Silence stretched between them. "If you are not ready, leave," he said. Her landlord's threats, her children's school fees, her empty pot at night. Will it work? She asked weakly. The man smiled. Your food will carry you. She left that place shaking. But desperation is louder than conscience. The first morning she did it, she nearly vomited. She washed her underwear in a small basin before dawn. The water looked slightly cloudy. Her hands trembled as she poured it into the pot of rice. This is madness, she whispered. She cooked as usual. When the first customer arrived, a bus conductor, she felt sweat gather under her wrapper. He ate quietly. Then he paused. Madam, today your rice is different. Her heart stopped. Different how? She asked carefully. He smiled. Very sweet. He bought takeaway. That afternoon, more customers came than usual. By 2 p.m., the pot was empty. Empty for the first time in months. She stood staring at the bottom of the pot in disbelief. Day 2 sold out. Day 3 sold out before 1 p.m. Within 2 weeks, customers were fighting over plates. Taxi drivers would park and shout, Madam Rice, keep 2 plates for me. They started calling her that, Madam Rice. People said, her stew has a charm, her jollof has a secret ingredient. Even when you are full, you'll still want more. Her income tripled. She added fried plantain, moi moi, goat meat pepper soup. She hired a young girl named Amaka to help serve customers. Every morning, before sunrise, she performed the ritual. The shame she once felt faded. Money has a way of silencing guilt. 6 months later, she left the wooden kiosk. She rented a proper shop space with tiles and plastic chairs. She repainted it bright yellow and wrote boldly, Madam Rice Restaurant, food that satisfies the soul. Customers flooded in. Civil servants came during lunch break. University students held meetings there. Even pastors ate there. She bought a freezer, a generator, 2 gas cookers. She started wearing gold chains. Her children transferred to private school. She moved from a 1-room apartment to a 2-bedroom flat. And every single morning she continued. Underwear, basin, rice. She stopped questioning it because it was working. Something else started happening. Customers complained jokingly, Madam, if I don't eat here for 2 days, my body will be shaking. Another woman said, my husband refuses to eat my food again. It must be your hand. She laughed it off, but inside she knew. One day, she decided to skip the ritual, just to test. That day, sales dropped by half. Fear gripped her. The next morning, she returned to the practice with renewed seriousness. Now, it was no longer about money. It was about maintaining power. 2 years later, Madam Rice opened a full restaurant along a busy road. Air-conditioned, waitresses in uniform, glass display warmers. People traveled from different parts of the city just to eat there. Food bloggers came, local politicians ordered catering. She bought a small car. She was no longer Mama Ebere. She was Madam Rice, respected, feared, admired. But rituals have consequences, and sacrifices do not disappear. They wait. Her son, Chinedu, started behaving strangely. He refused to eat her food. Whenever she served him, he would push the plate away. It smells, he said once. She slapped him. Ungrateful child. But she noticed something else. At night, she began hearing whispers in her kitchen. Soft, low, like someone stirring an empty pot. One night she woke up and found the kitchen light on. The pot lids were slightly open. She told herself it was stress. Success brings paranoia. But something had started shifting. 3 years after her first visit, she returned secretly to the shrine. The juju priest looked at her and smiled knowingly. You have grown. Yes, she said uneasy, but strange things are happening. He waved his hand dismissively. Success attracts spiritual attention. Continue what you are doing. She hesitated. Is there any danger? He looked at her longer this time. All things taken must one day be balanced. She didn't understand, but she left and continued, because stopping now would mean losing everything. And Mother Rice loved everything she had built. She did not know karma had already entered her kitchen. 3 years after she began the ritual, her restaurant was thriving. Madame Rice restaurant, food that satisfies the soul, had become a landmark in Port Harcourt. Turn left after Madame Rice, taxi drivers would say. She had 12 staff members, a full catering unit, a new Toyota SUV, 2 deep freezers, industrial gas burners. She was building a second branch near the university. But prosperity began to shift quietly. It started with stomach aches. One regular customer named Mr. Dan collapsed at his office after lunch. Doctor said it was food poisoning. His colleagues whispered, "Where did he eat?" "Madame Rice." She dismissed it. "People will always talk," she told her staff. Then another customer complained of severe diarrhea. Then 2 more. Then 5. Her waitress, Amaka, the same girl who had been with her since the kiosk days, noticed something strange. Every morning before anyone arrived, Madame Rice locked herself inside the kitchen for nearly an hour. No one was allowed in. If anyone knocked, she would shout angrily. One day, Amaka arrived earlier than usual. She had forgotten her phone the night before. She heard splashing sounds inside the kitchen. Curious, she peeped through the small back window. What she saw made her stomach turn. Madame Rice was holding a small basin. She wrung out something. Underwear. Then she poured the cloudy water into a large pot. She froze. Her mind refused to process it. No, no, no. She stepped back quietly, heart racing. The rest of the day, she could not look at the food the same way. That night, she vomited. The next morning, Amaka gathered courage. "Madam, I need to ask you something." Madame Rice looked up sharply. "What?"
What do you add to the rice before we come?
Silence. The air grew thick. Madame Rice's eyes hardened. "Mind your business." Amaka swallowed. "Madam, I saw something." A loud slap echoed across the kitchen. "You are a foolish girl. Do you know who made you? Who feeds your family?" Tears streamed down Amaka's face. "I will not keep quiet," she whispered. Madame Rice leaned close. "If you talk, your life will scatter." Fear clamped around Amaka's chest. But fear is not stronger than disgust. It began as gossip between 2 girls at a salon. "I heard something about Madame Rice." By evening, the rumor had entered 3 streets. By night, it was everywhere. "She uses dirty water to cook." "No, not dirty water. Worse, her underwear water." People laughed at first. Then they remembered their stomach problems. The laughter stopped. The next day, something happened that had not happened in years. By 1 p.m., half the tables were empty. By 3 p.m., food remained in the pots. Customers stood outside debating. Is it true? It can't be. But what if it is? Madame Rice stood behind the counter, smiling tightly. Inside, panic clawed at her. She called Amaka into her office. "You opened your mouth." Amaka stayed silent. "You think people will believe you," Madame Rice sneered. But the truth has its own smell, and people were beginning to sense it. One angry customer posted about it on social media. Within 48 hours, local health officers visited the restaurant. They wore gloves, they asked questions, they checked storage, they took samples. Madame Rice remained composed. "You know how competitors are," she said sweetly. "Jealousy." But while inspecting, one officer found something unusual. A small plastic basin hidden behind a large sack of rice. It had faint soap stains. "Why is this here?" he asked. "For washing vegetables," she replied quickly. He did not reply. More samples were taken. As the investigation went on, something worse began to happen at home. Her daughter, Adeaze, fell sick. Strange fever. Doctors could not explain it. At night, Adeaze screamed in her sleep, "Mommy, the rice is crawling." Madam Rice felt cold every time she heard that. One night, she dreamt of the juju priest. He was standing in her restaurant. The pots were empty. He said only one thing: all things taken must one day be balanced. When the laboratory results returned, contamination was confirmed. Though they could not scientifically identify underwear water, the bacterial levels were dangerously high. The restaurant was sealed temporarily, yellow tape across the entrance. Customers gathered outside whispering. Someone shouted, "Dirty woman." Another person threw a sachet of water at the signboard. Her staff resigned one by one. No one wanted their name attached to scandal. Radio stations discussed it. Bloggers exaggerated it. They called her Madam Pants Rice. Memes circulated. Her children were mocked at school. Chinedu came home one day with a bruised face. "They said we eat toilet food," he cried. Her daughter refused to attend classes. The same city that once praised her now spat her name like poison. Her daughter's illness worsened. Doctors still found nothing. In desperation, Madam Rice stopped the ritual completely. For the first time in years, she cooked plain rice. No basin, no secret. That night, Adeaze's fever broke. Madam Rice sat on the floor and wept. She finally understood. The binding she thought controlled customers had also bound her family. The cost was not just public shame, it was spiritual death. One Sunday, she stood in a small church in Mile 3, hands shaking, tears flowing. "I have done wrong," she said publicly. She confessed everything. The congregation gasped. Some insulted her, some prayed for her, but something shifted. For the first time in years, she felt light. Not rich, not powerful, but free. She now sells roasted corn by the roadside. No signboard, no restaurant, just a small charcoal grill. People still recognize her sometimes. Some mock her, some avoid her, but a few buy quietly. Her food tastes normal now. Just rice, just corn, just food. No chains, no binding. She has less money, but her children are healthy. And at night, her kitchen is silent. No whispers, no moving lids, just peace. Desperation can push a person into darkness, but shortcuts always demand repayment. What feeds greed will one day starve peace. And sometimes the most expensive ingredient is the one no one sees.